A billionaire asked one simple question. May I join you? She thought she was sharing lunch with an ordinary single dad trying to get through another hard day. What she didn't know was that the quiet man across the table had secretly helped build the very charity she now led, and someone inside her own organization had spent years making sure his name would never be remembered. Before this story ends, one forgotten key, one hidden truth, and one act of quiet courage will change both of their lives forever. Snow pressed against the windows of the lakefront crown, turning downtown Buffalo into a blur of white and gold. Upstairs, beneath crystal chandeliers, donors raised champagne glasses to 15 years of the Open Door Foundation. 2 floors below, behind the boiler room, Noah Mercer sat at a scratched plastic table in the employee cafeteria with his 10-year-old daughter. "Still warm," he said, opening the first takeout box. Lily touched the pasta with her fork. "That is a very generous definition of warm." Noah slid the fuller box toward her. His sleeve was damp from a leaking valve he had repaired 20 minutes earlier. He had promised they would eat together at 7. It was nearly 9. Lily pushed a cardboard model across the table, a tiny house with crooked windows and a red paper roof. "I fixed the front door," she said. Noah turned it carefully in his hands. "Looks strong." "It opens now." A small brass key hung from his watch strap, tapping softly against the table. The engraved words had been polished smooth by years of his thumb. "Keep one door open." Above them, applause shook the ceiling. At that moment, Claire Donovan stepped out of the ballroom with Marcus Hale close behind. "You cannot cut the neighborhood programs and call it growth," Claire said. "We are moving resources toward programs donors can actually see," Marcus replied. Claire glanced back at the screen displaying smiling children beneath the Open Door logo. "Those children are not campaign material. Tonight is not the time for this." "That is what you always say." She walked away before he could answer, down a fluorescent service corridor. No photographers, no board members, no one asking for a speech or a picture. Only vending machines, old coffee, and silence. Then she saw them. A tired man in a maintenance uniform, a girl with a cardboard house, 2 cold meals, 3 chairs. One chair was empty. Claire stopped beside the table, her face softened. "May I join you?" Noah looked up, surprised. But before he could answer, Claire's eyes dropped to the brass key hanging from his wrist. Her breath caught. She knew those words. They had appeared on the first handmade flyers for Open Door, before the foundation had offices or sponsors. Almost no one outside that first winter had ever seen them. Claire looked back up at Noah's face, searching for recognition, but all she found was polite confusion. "I'm sorry," Noah said, standing halfway from his chair. "Of course, please." He pulled out the empty chair. "It isn't exactly the ballroom." Claire smiled for the first time that evening. "That's exactly why I came." She sat down without hesitation, setting aside the elegant evening shawl draped over her shoulders. For a few quiet seconds, none of them spoke. The only sounds were the humming vending machine, the distant rumble of the hotel's heating system, and muffled applause filtering through the ceiling. Lily looked from her father to the unfamiliar woman. "Dad, is she famous?" Noah gave an embarrassed smile. "I think so." Claire laughed softly. "Sometimes." Lily nodded, as if that answered everything. "We've never had a famous person eat dinner with us. I've never been invited to dinner in a maintenance cafeteria. I guess we're even." The little joke dissolved the awkwardness. Noah pushed one of the unopened plastic forks toward Claire. "I should warn you, the pasta has probably been reheated twice." "I've eaten worse." Lily narrowed her eyes playfully. "That's something rich people always say." Claire blinked before laughing again. "Fair enough." Noah opened the second container and quietly divided its contents. Before Claire could object, he placed a small portion onto the spare plate. "We can't let someone sit at our table without eating." "You don't have to do that." "My daughter would never forgive me if I didn't." Lily nodded firmly. "There's always room for one more." Claire noticed that Noah served Lily first, then their guest, leaving the smallest portion for himself. He never mentioned it. He simply folded the empty container closed, as though he had intended it that way all along. For the first time all evening, Claire forgot about board votes, donor speeches, and fundraising numbers. She simply ate. "So," she asked after a moment, "do you always work nights?" "Mostly." "And school projects happen during dinner breaks." Noah looked at Lily's cardboard house. "We improvise." Lily lifted it proudly. "It's going to be part of my science fair." Claire carefully picked it up. The front door opens. "It didn't before," Lily said. "Dad says every house should have at least one door that never gets stuck." Claire glanced toward the brass key hanging from Noah's watch again. "One door. Keep one door open." The words echoed quietly in her memory. Before she could ask another question, an elderly dishwasher carrying a tray stumbled near the coffee station. The tray crashed onto the floor. The man's hand grabbed the counter as his knees buckled. Without thinking, Noah was already moving. "Lily, my first aid pouch." She had it in his hand before he finished speaking. Claire watched the practiced rhythm between father and daughter. No panic, no shouting, only quiet teamwork. Noah helped the man into a chair, opened a packet of crackers from his own lunch bag, and handed over a small bottle of orange juice that had been meant for Lily. "You need a little sugar first," Noah said gently. "I'm sorry." "No apology needed." Lily smiled warmly. "My dad fixes people almost as much as he fixes boilers." The old dishwasher's color slowly returned. "You just gave me your daughter's drink." Noah shrugged. "We'll find another one." Claire noticed Lily didn't complain. She simply reached for her water bottle instead. Across the hallway, a polished pair of dress shoes stopped beside the service entrance. Marcus Hale. His expression hardened as he looked through the doorway. He wasn't watching the sick employee. He wasn't watching the frightened little girl. He was watching Claire Donovan sitting at a plastic cafeteria table beside one of the hotel's maintenance workers. Marcus quietly turned toward a security supervisor standing nearby. "Run a background check on that employee," he said under his breath. "I want everything." Claire never noticed him, but someone else did. Noah looked up just long enough to see Marcus disappear around the corner. The warmth at the table suddenly felt a little more fragile. Something had just begun moving beyond that cafeteria door. Claire was the first to break the silence. "You two seem to have this routine figured out." Noah smiled faintly. "It took a few years." "A few?" Lily leaned her elbows on the table. "We've had a lot of practice." She said it with the matter-of-fact honesty only a 10-year-old could manage. There was no self-pity in her voice, only acceptance. Claire noticed a folded blanket tucked beside Lily's backpack. "You come here after school?" "When Dad's on the late shift." "The security ladies know me," Lily added proudly. "Mrs. Jenkins lets me do homework in the break room until Dad takes lunch." Noah looked slightly embarrassed. "It's only once or twice a week." "3," Lily corrected him. He gave a quiet sigh. 3. Claire could hear what wasn't being said. Overtime wasn't a choice anymore. It was survival. She looked at Noah's hands. The skin across his knuckles was cracked from cold weather and years of tools. Fresh scratches crossed 2 fingers, and a faded burn mark disappeared beneath his sleeve. "What do you actually take care of here?" she asked. "Anything that keeps people warm. The boilers, electrical panels, emergency generators, heating lines." Lily grinned. "And anything that starts making funny noises." Noah chuckled. "That too." Claire looked around the simple cafeteria. So while everyone upstairs is celebrating, someone has to make sure the lights stay on, Noah finished. He didn't sound bitter, just practical. For a brief moment, Claire wondered how many people at the gala even knew the name of the man keeping the building alive beneath their feet. Her eyes drifted once more to the brass key. "I like your key." Noah instinctively wrapped his fingers around it. "It belonged to my wife." His voice softened. "She used to say every family should leave one door unlocked, not literally." He smiled at the memory. "She meant there should always be room for kindness." Lily nodded. "Mom called it the open door rule." Claire felt an unexpected chill despite the warm room. The phrase, the key, the timing. Pieces that didn't seem connected somehow refused to stay apart. Before she could ask another question, Lily reached into her backpack. "I almost forgot." She pulled out a folded piece of thick drawing paper. "I made this today." She unfolded it across the table. It showed dozens of little houses stretching down a street. Every front door was colored gray, except one. One bright yellow door stood open beneath a sky full of stars. Claire smiled. "It's beautiful. My teacher says stories need symbols." "And what does this one mean?" Lily pointed to the open door. "It means someone always decides to be kind first." Claire's eyes lingered on the drawing. Then she turned it over. 3 words were written neatly on the back in blue marker. North Star Family. The smile slowly disappeared from her face. Her fingertips froze against the paper. She had not seen those words in over a decade. Not since the earliest days of Open Door. Not since handwritten letters had arrived without return addresses. She looked up at Noah. He hadn't noticed what Lily had written. He was busy checking the time on his worn watch. Claire carefully folded the drawing closed. "That's an interesting name," Lily shrugged. "My mom used to say our family should always be somebody's North Star." Noah finally looked over. A flicker of concern crossed his face. "Lily." The little girl immediately realized she had said something unexpected. "I'm sorry." "No," Noah said gently. "It's okay." But his expression told another story. It was the look of someone guarding a memory that had never been meant for strangers. Outside the cafeteria, Marcus slowed his pace as he watched through the narrow window in the service door. He couldn't hear their conversation, but he could see Claire holding the drawing, and he could see the maintenance worker suddenly become uncomfortable. Marcus's instincts sharpened. Whatever had caught Claire's attention, he intended to find it first. Marcus stepped away from the service door before anyone inside could notice him. His polished shoes echoed against the concrete hallway as he caught up with the security supervisor. "The maintenance employee," Marcus said quietly. "Noah Mercer." The supervisor nodded. "What about him?" "I want his personnel file, employment history, emergency contacts, performance reviews, everything." "Has he done something wrong?" Marcus adjusted his cufflinks. "I'll decide that after I know who he is." Back inside the cafeteria, Noah slipped the brass key beneath his sleeve. "I'm sorry," he said. "It's getting late. Lily has school tomorrow." Claire understood he wasn't trying to end the conversation because of the hour. He was protecting something. She respected that. "I should probably get back upstairs anyway." Lily tilted her head. "Do you have to give another speech?" Claire smiled. "Probably." "Do you like speeches?" Claire paused, longer than expected. "Not as much as I used to." Lily nodded thoughtfully. "My dad doesn't like asking people for help." Noah let out a quiet breath. "Lily?" "What?" "It's true." Claire looked at him with gentle curiosity. "Is it?" He hesitated before answering. "I've learned that if I can fix something myself, I should." "And if you can't?" "I usually work a little longer." His answer carried no bitterness, only habit. Claire wondered how many years it had taken for that sentence to become his way of living. As they stood, Noah gathered the empty containers before anyone else could. "You don't have to clean up," Claire said. "We made the mess." "So did I." He shook his head. "My daughter notices everything." Lily grinned. "He says leaving a place cleaner than you found it is free." Claire laughed softly. "That's a good rule. My wife came up with that one." There was no dramatic silence after he mentioned Elena, just a quiet absence that settled naturally between them. Claire noticed he never said "my late wife." He simply said "my wife," as though love had never learned the difference. A distant announcement crackled through the building. "Maintenance to lower mechanical. Maintenance to lower mechanical." Noah instinctively reached for the radio clipped to his belt. "Mercer here. We've got a pressure warning on Boiler 3. I'm on my way." He clipped the radio back. "Sorry." Claire shook her head. "No, that's your job." "And apparently everything breaks during dinner." Lily rolled her eyes. "It really does." Noah crouched beside his daughter. "I'll be 20 minutes. "You always say 20. I'll try to make it a real 20. She smiled. "I'll count." He kissed the top of her head before standing. For a brief second, Claire watched the expression on his face change. The father disappeared. The technician took over, focused, calm, already thinking 3 steps ahead. As Noah headed toward the mechanical corridor, Claire looked once more at the drawing Lily had folded back into her backpack. The bright yellow door, North Star family, the brass key, 3 separate pieces. One memory she couldn't quite reach. A hotel employee passed through the cafeteria carrying linens. "Ms. Donovan, everyone's looking for you." She nodded absent-mindedly. "I'll be there." But instead of returning upstairs immediately, she looked down the empty hallway where Noah had disappeared. Somewhere in the sound of his boots against the concrete floor, she felt as though she had heard that story before. She just couldn't remember where. Farther down the corridor, Marcus accepted a tablet from the security supervisor. The personnel record had already been pulled. Marcus scanned the first page. Name, position, years of service, widower, 1 dependent. Then his eyes stopped on a single line near the bottom. Emergency contact, none. Marcus closed the file. "A man with nothing to lean on," he murmured. "That usually makes people predictable." He smiled to himself. He had no idea how wrong that assumption would prove to be. Boiler Room 3 sat beneath the hotel like the engine room of a ship. Thick pipes stretched across the ceiling, steam drifted through the warm air, and the steady rhythm of pumps echoed against concrete walls. Noah reached the control panel before the alarm had finished sounding. He didn't rush. He observed. A flashing amber light blinked beside the pressure gauge. He crouched beside one of the circulation valves and rested his fingertips against the metal. "Too hot," he murmured. Another technician hurried over. "Think it's the sensor?" "No." "You sure?" "If it were the sensor, the temperature wouldn't feel like this." He reached for a flashlight and traced a thin line of water running beneath an insulated pipe. "There." The younger technician leaned closer. "I never would have spotted that." "It isn't the leak that worries me." "What is?" "The ice outside." The younger man frowned. Noah pointed toward the exterior foundation wall. "Snow's melting against warm concrete. If enough water gets in, it'll reach the electrical room before anyone upstairs realizes there's a problem." The technician's eyes widened. "I'll call facilities." "I already am." He lifted the radio. "Maintenance control. This is Mercer. Send someone to inspect the lower drainage channel. I want sandbags ready if the weather turns." "Copy that." Noah closed the valve by half a turn. The pressure needle steadied almost immediately. Problem contained. For now. He checked his watch. 23 minutes. "Lily's going to tell me I was late." The younger technician smiled. "My daughter would have done the same." Noah simply smiled back before gathering his tools. As he headed toward the service hallway, he passed the ballroom entrance. Music floated through the open doors. Crystal chandeliers reflected across polished marble floors. Servers carried silver trays between guests, dressed in black tuxedos and evening gowns. No one noticed the maintenance worker pushing a battered toolbox. No one except Claire. She had just stepped away from another conversation with board members when she saw Noah crossing the lobby. Without thinking, she excused herself. "Mr. Mercer." He stopped. "I hope Boiler 3 wasn't anything serious." "Nothing we couldn't handle." My crew deserves the credit too." Claire noticed he never claimed success for himself, even now. "You missed half your dinner." He shrugged. "Boilers don't usually check my lunch schedule." She smiled. "I suppose they don't." For a brief second, they stood surrounded by two completely different worlds. Elegant music behind her, the smell of machine oil following him. Claire hesitated. "I wanted to ask about your wife." Noah's expression softened, though a hint of caution returned. "Elena?" "The key, the saying." He looked down at the brass key resting against his wrist. "She believed kindness wasn't something you talked about." His thumb rubbed across the worn engraving. "It was something you kept doing after everyone stopped noticing." Claire felt those words settle somewhere deep inside her. Before she could continue, Marcus appeared from the ballroom with two members of the Foundation's board. "There you are," he said pleasantly, though his eyes never warmed. "The donors are asking for you." Then he glanced toward Noah. "Oh, you're still here." The words sounded harmless. The tone did not. Noah nodded politely. "My shift isn't over." Marcus gave the toolbox a brief look. "I'm sure the hotel appreciates dependable maintenance staff." Claire heard the quiet dismissal hidden inside the compliment. So did Noah, yet he simply answered, "I'm grateful to have honest work." Marcus forced a smile. "And we're grateful everything is running smoothly tonight." As Noah walked away, Marcus watched until the maintenance elevator doors closed. Then he turned to Claire. "You seem unusually interested in him." Claire looked toward the closed elevator. "I'm interested in anyone who treats strangers with more kindness than some people treat their colleagues." Marcus's smile faded for only a second, long enough to know she wasn't talking about Noah. Behind the elevator doors, Noah rested one hand on the brass key. He couldn't explain why, but for the first time in years, it felt as though something Elena had left behind was quietly beginning to find its way home. The maintenance elevator climbed with a slow mechanical hum, carrying Noah back toward the service level. He leaned against the wall for a moment, rubbing the brass key between his fingers before slipping it beneath his sleeve again. "Keep one door open," he whispered. It was something he still caught himself saying whenever life became too heavy. When the doors opened, Lily was already waiting outside the break room, swinging her backpack over one shoulder. "You were 28 minutes. "I know. You said 20. "I also said I'd try." She crossed her arms with exaggerated seriousness. "So, partial credit." He laughed. "I'll take it." Together, they walked through the employee corridor, where the noise of the gala faded behind concrete walls. Housekeepers pushed linen carts past them, cooks hurried toward banquet kitchens, and engineers disappeared into service doors. It was an entire world the hotel's guests rarely noticed. As they reached the staff exit, a blast of icy wind rushed inside. Snow was falling harder now. The parking lot shimmered beneath orange streetlights. Noah glanced at the sky longer than usual. "Storm's getting worse." "You worried?" "A little." He wasn't thinking about the drive home. He was thinking about the drainage channels beneath the hotel. Years of experience had taught him that heavy snow never caused the real trouble. The melting did. His radio crackled again. "Mercer, this is Control." Chief engineer wants another inspection of the lower mechanical corridor before midnight. He closed his eyes for half a second. I'll head back. Lily immediately understood. I'll wait in the break room. You sure? She smiled. I've got homework. He hated asking her to wait, but he hated leaving unfinished safety checks even more. I won't be long. You've said that already. I know. She squeezed his hand before walking back inside. As Noah disappeared toward the mechanical wing, Claire stood alone near the ballroom windows, watching snow collect on the hotel's front steps. The gala continued behind her. Someone announced another record-breaking year of donations. Another standing ovation followed. Yet Claire found herself thinking about a maintenance worker apologizing for cold pasta. Her phone vibrated. Marcus. Everything all right? The board is asking where you are. She typed only 2 words. Coming now. Instead, she opened the Foundation's internal archive on her tablet. Search. She entered the phrase that had stayed with her all evening. Keep one door open. No results. She tried again. North Star family. The screen searched for several seconds. Then a message appeared. No matching records found. Claire frowned. That made no sense. She remembered handwritten donation letters from the Foundation's earliest months. She remembered volunteers pinning notes to a corkboard because there had been no database at all. Someone had chosen those words. Someone had inspired the phrase she had carried into every speech since. Those memories couldn't simply disappear. Across the ballroom, Marcus noticed the expression on her face. He walked over smoothly. Still thinking about our maintenance technician? I'm thinking about missing records. His smile barely changed. 15 years is a long time. Early files get lost. Claire looked directly into his eyes. Only if someone lets them. For the first time that evening, Marcus felt the conversation slipping somewhere he hadn't planned. Meanwhile, deep beneath the hotel, Noah shined his flashlight along the drainage trench beside the electrical room. Water. Only a thin stream. For now, he knelt beside the grate, studying the slow movement of melting snow. His instincts tightened. The storm wasn't finished with the hotel. Neither, somehow, was the past. Noah ran his flashlight along the concrete channel one more time. A ribbon of icy water slipped beneath the steel grate, quiet enough to fool anyone who wasn't looking for trouble. He had spent 20 years listening to buildings. They always whispered before they screamed. He unclipped his radio. Maintenance control. This is Mercer. The drainage channel is moving water, but slower than it should. If the temperature jumps overnight, we could have runoff reaching the lower electrical room. A crackle answered. Forecast says another 3 inches of snow. I know, that's why I'm calling now. We'll note it. Noah hesitated. Please don't just note it. Silence. I'd like permission to stage extra pumps and sandbags before midnight. We'll ask the chief engineer. Thank you. He lowered the radio, unconvinced anyone would move until they saw a real emergency. By the time people saw one, it was usually too late. He gathered his tools and headed back toward the employee lounge. Lily was sitting exactly where he'd left her, sketching another cardboard house in a spiral notebook. She looked up the instant the door opened. Was it another fake emergency? No. Worse? Not yet. She studied his face. You've got your worried eyebrows. I have worried eyebrows? You do. She laughed. They come out before you start fixing something. He shook his head with a smile. I didn't know they had a schedule. They do. She slipped the notebook into her backpack. Can we go home now? He looked at his watch. If nobody calls in the next 5 minutes. Almost on cue, his radio buzzed again. Both of them stared at it. Lily sighed dramatically. I knew it, Noah answered. Mercer. Instead of maintenance control, it was the front desk supervisor. Mr. Mercer, could you stop by the East Service hallway on your way out? One of the ballroom doors isn't closing properly. I'll take a look. He clipped the radio back on. 5 more minutes. Lily grinned. You owe me pancakes tomorrow. Deal. As they walked through the service corridor, the sounds of the gala drifted through the walls. Music, applause, glasses clinking together. The contrast always struck Noah. Upstairs, people celebrated generosity. Down here, people made sure the lights stayed on. When they reached the east hallway, Noah immediately spotted the problem. The heavy fire door had drifted out of alignment. Cold air poured through the narrow opening. He knelt beside the hinges, tightened 2 loose anchor bolts, and adjusted the closing arm with practiced movements. The door swung shut with a firm click. There, Lily pushed gently against it. It works. It should, she smiled. You really do fix everything. His expression softened. No. He rested a hand on her shoulder. I just try to leave things a little safer than I found them. Claire had stepped away from the ballroom again, hoping for a quiet breath before returning to another round of speeches. She rounded the corner just in time to see Noah finishing the repair. There was no audience, no applause, no camera. He simply wiped the grease from his hands, picked up his toolbox, and prepared to leave. Claire realized something that unsettled her. The man never seemed to care whether anyone noticed. Kindness, responsibility, competence. He treated them the same way, as ordinary parts of the day. Before she could call out to him, Marcus appeared from the opposite hallway. He had a folder tucked beneath one arm. I've reviewed Mercer, he said quietly. Claire looked at him. And? Solid employee, quiet. No disciplinary record. That sounds reassuring. Marcus nodded. It would be, except people like him usually don't end up having unexplained connections to our foundation. Claire's eyes narrowed. What unexplained connections? Marcus tapped the folder. I'm still looking. He smiled politely. And I intend to find every answer before he gives you a story you'll want to believe. Claire watched Noah and Lily disappear through the employee exit into the falling snow. She wasn't thinking about stories. She was thinking about memories. Somewhere beneath 15 years of success, a forgotten truth was beginning to knock on a door that had never really been closed. Outside, the snow swallowed the city, one quiet street at a time. Noah and Lily drove home in an aging pickup whose heater worked only when the engine decided to cooperate. Neither of them minded the silence. They had learned that some evenings didn't need conversation. Lily traced circles on the fogged passenger window. Do you think she's nice? Noah kept his eyes on the road. Who? The lady from dinner. He smiled. I think she's tired. That's not what I asked. No, it isn't. After a moment, he chuckled. Yes, I think she's nice. Lily nodded, satisfied. I liked that she didn't act weird. Weird? You know, like rich people on TV. Noah laughed softly. I wouldn't know. The truck turned into a narrow neighborhood where modest duplexes stood shoulder to shoulder beneath fresh snow. Most porch lights had already gone dark. Their apartment sat above an old shoe repair shop whose faded sign had survived decades of Buffalo winters. Inside, the familiar chill greeted them before the lights did. Lily rubbed her hands together. It's colder tonight. It'll warm up. He walked to the thermostat. 61 degrees. Too low. He crouched beside the old baseboard heater and listened. Nothing. Not even the usual clicking. He removed the front panel with a screwdriver from his pocket. Lily watched without saying a word. After several quiet minutes, he stood again. It's the circulation pump. Can you fix it? Not tonight. She nodded, pretending that answer didn't disappoint her. Noah opened the hall closet and brought out a small electric space heater instead. We'll keep this in your room. What about yours? I've got plenty of blankets. She knew he was lying. He always gave her the warmest room. Always. While Lily disappeared to brush her teeth, Noah quietly opened the kitchen drawer and unfolded a handwritten bill. Rent due. 6 days. He stared at the number for several seconds before slipping it beneath a stack of grocery coupons. His phone buzzed. An overtime request. Double shift available Saturday. He looked toward Lily's bedroom. Saturday, the day of her science fair. His thumb hovered over the screen. Accept. Decline. He locked the phone without answering. A framed photograph rested beside the sink. Elena stood between him and a much younger Lily, all three laughing at something beyond the camera. Noah picked up the picture. "You always knew what to do," he whispered. The brass key rested against the frame as he set it back down. Across town, the lights in Claire Donovan's office burned long after the gala had ended. The ballroom was empty now. Only staff remained, folding tablecloths and stacking chairs. Claire sat alone with an old storage inventory displayed on her laptop. Volunteer boxes, Year 1, paper records, handwritten correspondence. Every listing ended with the same notation: archived, not destroyed, archived. She leaned back slowly. If they were archived, then someone knows exactly where they are. Her office door opened. Marcus stepped inside without knocking. "Still working? I'm looking for our original donor letters. They're ancient. They're part of our history." Marcus poured himself a glass of water. "Our future matters more than our history." Claire closed the laptop. "I don't believe those two things are enemies." Marcus studied her for a long moment. Then he smiled. "I'll have someone check the archives tomorrow." "I'd appreciate that." He nodded politely and left. Only after the door closed did Claire notice something. Marcus had answered too quickly, as though he already knew exactly where those records were, or where they weren't. Miles away, Noah turned off every unnecessary light in the apartment before heading to bed. The snow continued falling outside. The old heater struggled against the cold, and tucked safely beneath the cuff of his worn work jacket, the little brass key rested silently, waiting for a story that neither Noah nor Claire realized was finally beginning to unlock itself. Morning arrived beneath a blanket of fresh snow. Noah was awake before dawn, pulling on his work boots while the coffee maker hissed softly in the tiny kitchen. He paused outside Lily's bedroom, listening to the steady rhythm of her breathing, before quietly closing the door. The space heater glowed beside her bed. His own room had been cold enough to see his breath. He never mentioned that part. By 7:30, the pickup rolled back into the employee parking lot of the Lakefront Crown. Snowplows pushed white piles toward the edges of the lot, while maintenance crews scattered salt across the sidewalks. Inside the engineering office, Chief Engineer Tom Reynolds looked up from a clipboard. "Morning, Mercer." "Morning. Heard you called in another drainage warning last night." "I did." Tom sighed. "I sent the request upstairs. They said we'll monitor it." Noah nodded, though he already knew what monitor it usually meant. Wait. Hope. React later. He hung up his coat and reached for the day's work orders. Before he could leave, Tom lowered his voice. "Marcus Hale from the Open Door Foundation asked Human Resources for your personnel file." Noah looked up. "My file?" "That's what I heard." A faint crease formed between Noah's eyebrows. "Did they say why?" "No." Tom shrugged. "Probably nothing." Maybe, but it didn't feel like nothing. At nearly the same moment, Claire stood inside the Foundation's temporary office suite, overlooking the hotel's grand ballroom. Overnight, she had barely slept. Instead of reviewing donor pledges, she found herself thinking about a maintenance worker who apologized for serving cold pasta. Her assistant, Emily Brooks, entered carrying a tablet. "Good morning." "Morning. You have 3 interviews, 2 sponsor calls, and the board breakfast." Claire nodded distractedly. "Emily, can you do something for me?" "Of course. I need every paper document we still have from the Foundation's first year." Emily blinked. "The paper archives?" "Every box." "I'll contact records." Emily hesitated. "I thought Marcus oversaw those." Claire closed the folder in front of her. Not today. Across another hallway, Marcus was already making calls of his own. I want to know everything about Noah Mercer, he told an HR manager over the phone. No rumors. No assumptions. Facts. The manager sounded puzzled. He's one of our best maintenance technicians. I'm not evaluating his work. I'm evaluating his influence. When the call ended, Marcus opened the copied personnel file again. One line caught his attention. Volunteer activities. Declined to report. Most employees skipped that section without thinking. Marcus didn't believe in coincidences. Back in the engineering wing, Noah inspected emergency generators with his younger co-worker, Ben. You seem distracted, Ben said. Do I? You checked the same gauge twice. Noah smiled faintly. Guess I did. You ever meet that billionaire again? No. Ben grinned. My wife would have asked for a selfie. Lily asked for another meatball. Both men laughed. Then Noah's radio crackled sharply. Maintenance to ballroom loading dock. He answered immediately. Mercer here. We've got a freight lift stuck between floors. I'm coming. He grabbed his toolbox without another word. As he disappeared down the corridor, Ben watched him go. He never walks, Ben muttered. He always runs toward the problem. Upstairs, Claire stepped into the hallway at exactly the same moment Noah hurried toward the loading dock below. They never saw each other, but somewhere between the ballroom filled with donors and the service corridors filled with workers, their two paths were drawing closer with every passing hour. Neither of them knew that someone else was already trying to make sure those paths would never meet again. Marcus stood in the Foundation's temporary office overlooking the hotel atrium, flipping slowly through Noah Mercer's personnel file. No disciplinary actions, outstanding safety evaluations, recommended twice for leadership training, never promoted. He frowned. People with spotless records usually left fingerprints somewhere, awards, complaints, ambition. Noah had none. He simply showed up, fixed what was broken, and went home. That unsettled Marcus more than any impressive resume could. He picked up the phone. I need access to the archived donor correspondence from the Foundation's first year. The records manager hesitated. Those boxes haven't been opened in years. They're being opened now. Ms. Donovan already requested them this morning. Marcus's expression hardened. Then make me a duplicate inventory before anyone else sees the files. He ended the call without waiting for an answer. Across the hotel, Noah was kneeling beside the stalled freight elevator. A delivery driver stood nearby, pacing nervously. We've got medical equipment inside, the driver said. The children's performance starts in an hour. Noah listened instead of rushing. He placed one hand against the elevator door, then looked toward the control cabinet. It's not the motor. You know that already. The motor's still humming. He removed the access panel, tightened a loose relay connection, then reset the safety circuit. The elevator shuddered once. A second later, it descended smoothly to the loading dock. The driver let out a relieved breath. I thought we'd be here all morning. Noah smiled. Sometimes machines just need someone to listen before trying to fix them. The driver reached for his wallet. At least let me buy you lunch. Noah shook his head. I'm already getting paid to be here. As the driver wheeled the equipment away, Ben looked at Noah with a grin. You ever notice you turn down every thank you? I don't turn them down. You kind of do. Noah closed his toolbox. I just don't need anything extra. Ben laughed. You're a strange guy, Mercer. Probably. A few floors above, Claire entered the hotel's records room with her assistant, Emily. Dust floated through narrow beams of light as shelves of old storage boxes stretched across the room. The records clerk pointed toward the back wall. Everything from the early years is over there. Claire smiled. Thank you. She brushed a layer of dust from the first box. Open Door Foundation. Year 1. The cardboard was worn at the edges. Someone had written the words, original letters, in black marker. Claire lifted the lid. Inside were neatly bundled envelopes tied together with faded blue ribbon. For a moment, she simply stared. Before there had been million-dollar donations, before there had been galas, there had only been letters, handwritten, personal, hope folded inside ordinary envelopes. Emily carefully picked one up. I've never seen any of these. Neither has most of the board. Claire reached for another bundle. Then she stopped. A gap. One section of the box was empty. The ribbon had been cut cleanly. She checked the inventory sheet taped inside the lid. There should have been 12 bundles. Only 11 remained. Emily. Yes? Was this box sealed when it arrived? I believe so. Claire ran her fingers across the missing space. No, it wasn't. Someone had opened it recently. Someone had known exactly which letters to remove. Down the hallway, unnoticed by either woman, Marcus watched through the small glass window in the records room door. He saw Claire studying the empty space inside the box. He knew exactly what she had discovered, but he also knew something she didn't. The missing bundle contained every anonymous letter signed with the same name. North Star Family. Marcus stood motionless in the hallway. For several seconds, he watched Claire's eyes linger on the empty space inside the archive box. She wasn't looking at cardboard anymore. She was looking at a question, and questions were dangerous. He quietly stepped away before she could notice him. His phone was already in his hand. David, he said after the call connected, I need you to check the off-site storage facility. The Riverside warehouse? Yes. Make sure nothing has been misplaced. David hesitated. You mean the North Star files? Marcus's voice turned cold. I mean every file. When the call ended, he slipped the phone into his pocket, his polished expression returning before anyone could see the tension beneath it. Across the records room, Claire carefully lifted one of the surviving bundles. The first envelope was yellowed with age. The handwriting leaned slightly to the right. She unfolded the letter. Your grant helped us replace a broken furnace before winter. My children slept warm for the first time in weeks. Whoever you are, thank you. Claire closed her eyes. She remembered those early days. There had been no cameras, no sponsorship banners, no ballroom dinners, only people trying to keep strangers alive, one family at a time. Emily gently opened another letter. This one says they never met the donor. Claire nodded. Many of our first supporters wanted it that way. Emily smiled. They weren't buying recognition. They were buying hope. Claire placed the letters back into the box with surprising care, almost as if they were family photographs. But someone removed part of that history. Her voice was calm, too calm. That worried Emily more than anger would have. Meanwhile, several floors below, Noah was replacing a pressure sensor inside one of the hotel's boiler control panels. Ben leaned against the wall, watching. You ever think about leaving this place? Noah tightened the last connector. Sometimes. So, why don't you? He wiped his hands on a shop towel before answering. Because buildings remember the people who take care of them. Ben laughed. I've never heard anyone talk about boilers like they're family. They're not, Noah smiled. But people inside them are. Before Ben could reply, Noah's radio crackled. Mercer, report to conference room B. He frowned. What's in conference room B? Foundation staff requested a maintenance inspection. I'll be there. He picked up his toolbox. Ben called after him. Don't let the fancy people keep you all day. Noah waved without turning around. Conference room B sat beside the executive offices reserved for the Open Door Foundation during the gala week. Inside, Claire was reviewing old correspondence spread neatly across a long oak table. She looked up as someone knocked. Come in. The door opened. Noah stepped inside, carrying his toolbox. For just a heartbeat, neither of them spoke. You requested maintenance? Noah asked. Claire blinked. almost surprised to see him again. Yes. She pointed toward a tall display cabinet. The lock won't open. Noah set his toolbox on the floor and walked over. It took him less than 30 seconds to inspect the mechanism. He smiled faintly. The lock isn't broken. It isn't? No. He held up a small brass pin that had slipped sideways inside the latch. Someone forced it shut. Claire's expression changed. Forced it? It wouldn't jam like this on its own. He reset the pin, turned the key, and the cabinet door opened smoothly. Inside were framed photographs from the Foundation's earliest years. Volunteers, church basements, food drives, winter coat collections. Claire stared quietly at the pictures. Something was missing here, too. Not a photograph, a feeling. As Noah closed his toolbox, his jacket sleeves slipped back for the briefest instant. The little brass key caught the light. Claire's eyes settled on it. Something deep inside her memory stirred, though she couldn't yet understand why. Claire's gaze lingered on the small brass key until Noah pulled his sleeve back into place. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I was distracted." Noah smiled politely. "It happens." He latched his toolbox and started toward the door. "If the cabinet sticks again, don't force it. The mechanism's old, but it'll last if it's treated gently." Claire nodded. "Thank you, Mr. Mercer." He paused. "You remembered my name. I try to remember the people who helped me." For the first time, Noah looked directly at her instead of the room around them. "Not everyone does." He offered a small nod and stepped into the hallway. The door clicked softly behind him. Claire remained standing in front of the open cabinet. Her eyes drifted across the photographs until one stopped her. A faded picture showed volunteers unloading blankets from an old pickup truck during the Foundation's first winter outreach. She leaned closer. The truck was too far away to recognize, but hanging from its rearview mirror was something that looked remarkably like a small brass key. Her breath caught. No, it couldn't be. The photograph was almost 15 years old. She reached for the frame just as Emily returned, carrying another archive box. "I found more records." Claire pointed toward the photograph. "Can we enlarge this?" Emily studied it. "It's pretty blurry, I know, but I want to try." Across the hall, Marcus watched through the partially opened office door. He couldn't hear their conversation. He didn't need to. Claire was asking questions. Again. That alone was enough. He quietly sent a single text message. "Delay the archive transfer. Immediately." Within seconds, the reply came. "Understood." Meanwhile, Noah headed back toward the engineering department. Halfway down the service corridor, his phone vibrated. The screen displayed Lily's school. He answered immediately. "This is Noah." "Mr. Mercer, this is Mrs. Collins." His heart tightened. "Is Lily okay?" "She's fine." He let out a slow breath. "She wanted me to remind you that the science fair begins at 6 tomorrow evening." "I haven't forgotten." "She told the class you're never late." Noah smiled despite himself. "I'll be there." After ending the call, he stood still for a moment. Tomorrow evening. No overtime. No extra shift. Nothing would keep him away. He slipped the phone back into his pocket and continued walking. As he rounded the corner, Chief Engineer Tom Reynolds hurried toward him. "There you are." "Everything all right?" Tom handed him a printed work order. "We've got a complaint from the lower mechanical level." "What kind of complaint?" "Water." Noah's expression changed instantly. "The drainage channel?" Tom nodded. "Facilities says it's probably nothing." Noah didn't answer. He was already moving. His boots echoed through the concrete corridor as he descended the stairs 2 at a time. The air grew colder with every level. By the time he reached the mechanical basement, he heard it before he saw it. Drip, drip, drip. Not the steady trickle from melting snow. Something heavier, more deliberate. His flashlight swept across the floor. A thin stream of water was creeping beneath the electrical control room door. Noah's pulse quickened. He pushed the door open. The runoff had doubled since the night before. The storm outside was beginning to find its way inside, and if the water reached the primary electrical panels, the hotel wouldn't just lose power. Hundreds of guests, dozens of employees, and one of the city's largest charity events could suddenly find themselves in the middle of a dangerous emergency. Noah reached for his radio. This time, hoping someone would listen was no longer enough. Because sometimes the most important person in the room isn't the one giving the speech. It's the one quietly standing in the basement, refusing to ignore the first warning that everyone else dismissed. This story reminds us that real courage often begins long before anyone notices it. Noah didn't wait for applause or permission. He chose to act when doing nothing would have been easier. Today, think of one small warning in your own life that you've been putting off. Make the call, have the conversation, or fix the little problem now, just as Noah did, because small actions taken early can prevent much bigger heartaches later. If this story touched your heart, leave a 1 in the comments so I know it stayed with you. And tell me this, have you ever spoken up about something important when no one else seemed to listen? I'd love to read your story below. Stay with us, because the next chapter reveals that some forgotten truths have been waiting years for the right person to uncover them.